Welcome to Dialogue. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization is the world's largest regional organization, covering 60% of Eurasia and 40% of the world's population. On Tuesday, the heads of state of the SCO gathered for a virtual summit where the SCO officially welcomed Iran as its newest member, extending its reach to the Gulf region. What more do we know about today's summit? What are the pressing issues for the organization, and how can Iran's membership help the group address global and regional issues? To help us answer these questions and more, I'm joined by Professor Wang of Northwest University of China, Zoon Ahmed, Research Fellow of the Center for China and Globalization, and Professor Seyed Mohammad Marandi of the University of Tehran. That's our topic. I'm Xu Qinduo. Welcome to Dialogue. Zoon, I will start with you. SCO comprises, China, Russia, India, Pakistan, plus the 4 Central Asian nations. Now Iran is the newest member, officially becoming part of the group. What impressed you the most for so far, of this year's SCO conference?
Okay, thank you, Chinduo, for having me, and on really a very important topic. As you mentioned, of course, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, since its inception in 2001, since it started, has expanded. New member states, including where I come from, Pakistan, India, and now Iran, have been also included. I think the most important key takeaway, from today's summit and from this year, the organization's growth, is that all countries agree that security is a collective challenge. Everyone agrees that we need to keep building, enhancing our cooperation. Everyone agrees that regional connectivity is the core priority for the countries within the SCO. And I think this is very important also because there are member states within the SCO that have bilateral differences. There are certain challenges that we all face. And when we are not united, we are unable to address and find a common denominator. So I think the most important is firstly that despite many challenges, also vastly external challenges that the organization faces, it has continued its trend of expansion. It has continued to agree on the solid foundation that was the premise of the creation of the SCO. And we are also looking at how receptive the organization has been to the changing trends in the world. For example, healthcare cooperation was included. We also saw that now environment is a major focus of the organization. Another factor is, of course, I think this is particularly important, that the synergy, the interconnectivity between security, development, and common understanding is something that all members acknowledge. This was mentioned, of course, also by President Xi Jinping. And every member realizes that if we are to move towards a space, an existence, a mutual existence that is mutually conducive, and we are to resolve not only our differences, but think about a future that is connecting us on a deeper level, then this is the right trend. And I think this is the most important takeaway, that not only is the SCO still relevant, it is definitely being perceived as increasingly relevant in today's changing world.
Mm-hmm. Professor Marandi, so what's your biggest takeaway? And of course, congratulations for Iran's the official membership of SCO.
Well,
Yeah, Professor Marandi, go ahead.
I think the most important thing that we should keep in mind is the fact that the world is changing, and the center of commerce and trade and growth is now Asia. It is moving away from the West. And that poses many challenges. We have security issues. We have the threat of extremism that has come from Afghanistan for many years, and which has been linked to events in decades past. We also have opportunities, which only through a cooperation and convergence, a convergence among the different countries, can take place in an orderly fashion. Also, I would argue that because Western countries are becoming increasingly aggressive towards different countries, imposing sanctions not only on Iran or Venezuela or Syria or Yemen or other such countries, but now they are imposing their sanctions on Russia and increasingly on companies that are Chinese and others. So this provides an opportunity for important countries across Asia to come together and also to protect themselves, to protect their economies, to protect their financial institutions from external players who wish to dominate the world. So there's a security element here, there's an economic element, and there's a cultural element. These countries have to better understand one another so that their business leaders can work together, business people can travel back and forth, tourists can travel back and forth, students can travel back and forth. So it is a very extraordinarily useful platform to help these countries during these challenging times.
Challenging times and, of course, very useful SCO. We'll touch upon that a bit late. And, of course, speaking to the summit, Chinese President Xi Jinping raised the question of the direction of the global development. Professor Wang, Xi Jinping mentioned about we're facing choices like unity or division, peace or conflict, cooperation or confrontation. I would say this is not only challenges for individual countries, but also for SCO. Is that the case?
Yes, you are right. Actually, not only China faces the problems such as development and such as the security, but also I think all around the world, every country they faces a very similar problem. Although the content might differ, but they face a very similar problem, especially given that the world is undergoing the very seriously transformation. So that is why Chinese President Xi Jinping's speech is very, very important, because during his speech, if you look at his speech, he emphasized the importance of the cooperation to settle the problem of the security issue, to settle the problem of development issue, settle the problem of the political issue, and call for a strong unity between the different countries, not only the SCO membership, but also all across the world. Also, that President Xi emphasized and stresses the importance and the important role of the Belt and Road Initiative during his speech for the future cooperation between different countries. So that is also a very important mechanism, multilateral mechanism for China's cooperation with other parts of the world. So SCO is a very example, has already become the example, just as Xi Jinping stressed that Shanghai spirit and SCO model has already become the example for the facilitating the multilateral cooperation, for the facilitating the world cooperation, that we should put aside the differences aside and then focus upon our opportunities of shared interests and shared future. But also we have to know that SCO will become an example of more and more states will have the opportunities to get involved and to express their own ideas and to find the opportunities for future collaborative activities, just as that Iran's new membership to the SCO. So I think in the future, just as Xi Jinping mentioned, that the SCO will become an example and also will continue to become an example for the multilateral corporations in the region and also for the world.
Thank you, Wang Jian. Zoon, President Xi Jinping also, mentioned about the three major initiatives from China: the Global Security Initiative, Global Development Initiative, and the Global Civilization Initiative. In the sense, can we say the Chinese initiatives, compose a response, or Chinese vision for how to overcome these challenges, conflicts, division, and confrontation, so we can continue to move forward and with a focus on development, on stabilization?
Absolutely, absolutely, Chindo. I think, firstly, it's important to note that even in the day-to-day workings of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the focus is a lot on very practical aspects of the cooperation. We have agriculture, technology, education, youth exchanges, anything and everything, member countries, and even others that are part of the SCO family. Whatever kinds of cooperation that can help them understand regional strategies, create better ways forward, is engaged. And when we now coming to President Xi's initiatives, the Global Development Initiative, which talks about the need to develop, but also from a very focused perspective. We are talking about infrastructure, we are talking about better opportunities for people, we are talking about connectivity, but also thinking about keeping human beings, people at the center as the focal point, which is China's experience as well. Then when we talk about the Global Security Initiative, it's about building a world that is safer and recognizing that the challenges we face in terms of security are indeed collective. And right now, it's also worth mentioning that Saudi-Iran normalization, of diplomatic relations is something very historic that has been achieved through the GSI. And this is also the perspective of the SCO. If two countries like them can do it, I think any countries, at some point, we need to be able to sort of compartmentalize. We can talk about differences in the long term, but we should also focus on mutual areas of cooperation and realize that the bigger threats we face are indeed collective. And Global Civilizations Initiative, again, is deeply in sync with the Shanghai spirit because it talks about mutual recognition, realizing that our histories, our perspectives, our people's experiences over millennia, over the course of various civilizations are valuable. We should study them, and we have the historic precedent to cooperate with one another. I think, ideas like the clash of civilizations and these notions, these divisive notions that have been disseminated on the world are meant to be questioned today. And as we see the rise of the global south, we see the rise of Asia, we see the rise of previously developing countries, we also see that we are able to reflect back on that mutual history, the fact that we can create synergy, and all of these combined, they encompass the Shanghai spirit. So I think not only are these initiatives deeply in line with what the Shanghai Cooperation Organization has always represented, but they also point to the long term, the needed, the desirable way forward. If we unite, if we work together holistically on strategies that on challenges that we face, then we are able to utilize energies in a constructive way, and we can achieve a multipolarizing world with more synchrony. I think that's also absolutely something that the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is helping the global community do.
Mm-hmm. Well, Wang Jin, both you and Zoon mentioned about the Shanghai spirit. Well, we know that Shanghai spirit is the underlying principle of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, and it calls for mutual trust, mutual benefit, equality, consultation, respect for cultural diversity, and the pursuit of a common development among nations. So, in a sense, SCO itself is a demonstration or case in point of the Shanghai spirit. You have members with a different political system, different history, different values even, but they are working together for common development, for stability. So share with us your understanding how important, why we are stressing so much about the Shanghai spirit here, Wang Jin.
Because Shanghai spirit, as you mentioned, is a very fundamental principle for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. When we are talking about Shanghai spirit, we're actually talking about the new kind of the values, political values or the international values that stresses, as you mentioned, highlights the importance of equality, the importance of shared interests, the importance of the shared security. Because Shanghai Cooperation Organization is developed from a very, very small and partial multilateral consensus over the border control, over for example, border management into other areas, for example, into the political trust, into the economic development, and also into the some kind of the mechanism such as the anti-terrorism and anti-extremism during the past decades. And meanwhile, the members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization also enlarged, for example, from the China and some Central Asian states and Russia to India and Pakistan, and also to now the very new member, Iran. And also the observer states, for example, and also the dialogue partnership states also enlarged during the past decade. So that's why that during this process, all this membership, especially the spirit of the Shanghai spirit, has already been very strongly highlighted, very strongly respected during the whole process. Nobody is trying to bully the other. Nobody is trying to become the superior status against the other states. So that is why we say the Shanghai spirit is very important, not only for the SCO memberships, but also for the rest of the world, that it will become the example for the future states cooperation and future states multilateral and bilateral relations.
Well, mutual respect and true diversity. Professor Marandi, if you look at the structure of Shanghai Cooperation Organization here now, we have 8 member states and 3 observer states. And Turkmenistan, of course, for this round of summit, as a guest of the chair. In addition, there are 6 countries as dialogue partner status. So, I wonder what attracted them to be close to or lining up to join the SCO.
I think it's pretty clear that countries across the globe are dissatisfied with the current international institutions that are controlled by the West. This is not just something that we are seeing in Asia. We see these sort of discussions being carried out among ASEAN countries. We see countries in Latin America making the same criticisms of the status quo. And African countries, of course, have been very outspoken, especially in recent months. So I think it's only natural that when there's dissatisfaction with regards to Western-dominated political organizations, cultural organizations, financial organizations, then these countries have to come together to find solutions. And these alternatives are key to a better future for these countries, and also to create a more just global system. What is important about the SCO countries is that the population and the landmass of these countries is enormous. And also you pointed to a very important fact that they are very diverse. You have different political systems, you have different cultures, but they've all come together and they all are treated as equal and they're able to cooperate. And as a previous guest pointed out, while there are differences between member states, in fact, this organization provides a platform to address these differences in a more positive way. In the past, I would argue that interests in Western capitals would actually try to increase tensions. Those who have vested interests would try to decrease or increase tensions between countries, like the example given earlier between Iran and Saudi Arabia. They have an interest in dividing West Asia. They have an interest in dividing South Asia. They have an interest in making Central Asia unstable, because Central Asia links all of these different SCO countries together. So bringing these countries together in such an organization, I think, is unique. I think it has enormous advantages, and it's not just the summit itself. Now, in this particular case, it's an online summit, but the fact that they provide regular opportunities for one-to-one discussions between leaders, between ministers, it has the usefulness of these summits and this organization, I think, really cannot be measured.
But here's if you look at the coverage in the Western media, Professor Marandi, they expressed the concern that SCO is offering or alternative to the international order or disruption of the current international order. What's your response?
I think they should look in the mirror. The problem with the current order is that Western countries, they call themselves the civilized world, implying that the rest of us, including all the members of the SCO, are uncivilized. They call themselves the free world, basically meaning that the rest of us do not live in freedom. And they control all of the major global institutions. So when you have a hierarchical system, when certain countries consider themselves to be exceptional and superior to the others, then that system is not going to work, especially at a time when the global south, when Asian countries, African countries, Latin American countries, and others are on the rise, and the collective West, for a host of different reasons, are on the relative decline. During such circumstances, they cannot keep the world in check as they were able to do so 50, 40, 30 years ago. This is a natural shift, and I think that the creation of the SCO is a natural response to these changes. Maybe one day in the future, if the West decides to reform these organizations, to make them global, to make them just, to make them all-inclusive, then we would have a very different situation. But in the world that we live in, organizations like the SCO, like BRICS, are necessary.
Mm-hmm. Zoom, we know that Iran has become an official member of SCO, and Belarus is on the way to become a full member probably next year. So what do you make of the latest expansion to have Iran part of SCO family here?
Oh, I've congratulated more Iranian people than I can count, and other congratulations to Professor Marandi as well. As the other speakers have also mentioned, the SCO represents a spirit that is also the Shanghai spirit, but let's also remember the 1950s Bandung spirit, which was about South-South solidarity. Now 70 years on, these countries have emerged. Developing countries are no more in the waiting room of history. All of us realize that we have something to contribute to the world. We are dynamic. We have a bright future if we focus on the right priorities. I think this basic mindset, this idea that we are supposed to be led by so-called Western powers or previously developed countries that were responsible for colonization and such dehumanization of humanity. That idea has been shattered, number one. And number two, I think China's own success, China's Belt and Road Initiative, the fact that many multilateral platforms are now being established, and of course SCO is a key multilateral platform when it comes to that, which are helping countries be creative about their development. And that notion that we believed in, that somehow there's only one path forward, we should develop just like Western countries developed. The fact that the SCO is helping us as a region realize that those ideas, those theories, those things that were imposed on us are not, that was a facade to keep us under their control. This is one of the major reasons that countries like Iran, like Belarus, like so many others are attracted to the SCO. It is not about targeting someone else as such, but it's really, the question is, what can we build together? What can we do to help each other? What can we do to make sure that even when we have differences and misunderstandings, we maintain the communication, we maintain channels of communication, we maintain to constantly be creative about figuring out what are the commonalities, what can we still continue to work on. So I think Iran's addition is a big achievement for the SCO. It can add to the SCO's ability to improve regional connectivity. Also, the theme this year, Secure, it covered various facets of the Shanghai spirit, of the kind of connectivity all countries want. So definitely, and again, back in 2000, I'll quickly add that back in 2001, there was a lot of skepticism about the ability of the SCO. And just look at where the organization is today. We see optimism. We see a sense of also mutual responsibility to address our challenges, our problems, because nobody else is going to do that for us. So I think definitely Iran, Belarus's additions, hopefully next year Belarus's, are a positive signal for what the organization has achieved and aims to continue to achieve.
Mm-hmm. Professor Wang, what's your take of the Iranian membership here? We know Iran is under sanction from the U.S., from European countries, but now official member of SCO. What does it mean to the group and to Iran itself?
First of all, Iran's new membership, as well as the very possible membership of Belarus, suggested that the SCO is a very, very attractive organization because as it has already on the process of enlargement and also will continue to enlarge in the future. And on the other hand, suggested a very widely accepted principle of the Shanghai spirit, and become more and more widely accepted, more and more widely respected, and more widely praised in the international community. So it suggests the very success of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization as well as the Shanghai spirit. And meanwhile, it also suggests, as just as Zoon and Marandi mentioned, that it suggested a very transformation of the global landscape. Because traditionally, that the Western countries and some developed countries, they controlled everything. They control they dominated the international institutions. They dominated the mechanism. But now everything becomes transformed and changes. So that is suggests a new direction of the future international community, and also Shanghai Cooperation Organization will play a more and more important role in the international community in the future.
Yes, Professor Marandi, of course, if you look at the Western press coverage of SCO, they say, Iranian membership of SCO will likely spark anger from the West. What do you make of that? Why the West is angered by Iranian membership of SCO?
I think the West in general gets angry much too easily and much too quickly. The problem that they have is that it remains difficult for them to recognize that they're living in the past and the world has changed. The bubble that they live in Washington and some European capitals prevents them from seeing the reality on the ground. This era is an era where, as my colleagues rightly pointed out, is an era where so-called third world countries are on the rise and they are gaining influence. Iran is becoming increasingly powerful. Pakistan has an enormous population. India, China being the powerhouse for the global economy, Russia with all the tremendous resources that it has. These are countries that the West has to, I think, try to learn to respect. The issue is not replacing the West. The issue is not destroying or defeating or humiliating the West. The issue is that we have to create a world where the global South, where Asian countries in particular in this case, feel that they are equal, that they are on equal footing, that they are treated equally. And Western countries, at least until now, they fail to accept that. Again, they're living in their bubble. Whether they like it or not, the world is changing and will continue to change. And I think in the not so distant future, we will be living in a very different place from where we are even today.
So probably the key is to accept and recognize and accept the changes, and well, that would be the trend of the world development. With that, we come to the end of today's discussion. Many thanks to our guests. You can also find us on the CGTN app on YouTube. Thank you for being with us. I'm Xu Qinduo. See you next time.